If you're anything like me, you were pretty blown away by the quality of the camera on the original OnePlus One. Since then, though, the experience has been fairly hit or miss in many regards, and OnePlus has been trying to sell consumers on the idea that they can make a great camera without compromise. The OnePlus 7 Pro finally fulfills that desire in almost every single way, and it all starts with the new 48 megapixel sensor on the main camera. This main camera delivers solid results all around. Dynamic range is really good. Colors are super accurate and not oversaturated like Samsung or OPPO like to do. Even details in moderately low light are fantastic and rank among the best out there. There's little to nothing this camera does wrong in most situations, but there is one weird quirk that we're hoping gets fixed in the near future. This main camera seems to have some sort of odd focusing issue when taking pictures of objects up close. Normally, this type of effect on the edges of a picture is due to lens distortion, but it doesn't happen all the time and it's somewhat difficult to reproduce. This still occurs after the GM21 update that was supposed to fix the focusing issues, so hopefully this continues to get ironed out with software updates, as the photos look quite bad when this happens. More or less, this is currently not a great camera if you enjoy Instagramming your food pics. Low light is quite excellent though in most situations, and the OnePlus 7 Pro seems to outperform many other rivals in the amount of detail it can pull, despite having little light. While nothing quite compares to the Huawei P30 Pro, the OnePlus 7 Pro beats phones like the Galaxy S10 and the Google Pixel 3 in detail in most of these shots, even the darkest of them. There are a few exceptions, but the performance here is quite notable, especially given how they've struggled in this area in the past. Looks like that new sensor is making a big difference. An upgraded Nightscape Mode ships with the phone, but tends to be fairly hit or miss. OnePlus cites that this mode was intended for high contrast night scenes like that of a city or something similar with lots of lights and lots of complementing darkness, and isn't as effective in areas with very little light. As you can tell in these comparisons, that's definitely the case, and the phone tends to struggle to pull out both fine detail and lots of light, usually forcing you to choose between the two. Auto mode will produce the most fine detail in almost every scene we tested it in, while Nightscape will grant additional dynamic range and sometimes added light in dark areas. One thing to note is the capture time on Nightscape shots. While we haven't had any sort of issue with long capture time, some people have reported extremely long capture times of several seconds while using this mode. This produces blurry shots and clearly isn't what was intended. Our experience with this mode has shown it to capture faster than the Pixel 3's night sight or Huawei's night mode, but of course the results don't compare to those phones in most ways. Nightscape can also only be used on the main camera, as there's no support for the telephoto or ultra-wide-angle cameras at this time. That's a shame too, because those new cameras are both really fantastic in general and make this easily the most versatile camera experience OnePlus has ever put together. Let's start with the telephoto camera, which is marketed as a 3x zoom lens. While there's been some controversy as to how OnePlus achieved the 3x number, the results speak for themselves. At 2x zoom, we see good results because the image is that of the main 48 megapixel sensor, just cropped to fit a 2x zoom level. Going beyond that, the 3x telephoto camera kicks in and improves detail in every kind of lighting situation, although you'll find diminishing returns as light gets lower. These side-by-side comparisons show that effect in lower lighting, even just indoor lighting in the afternoon, but comparing it with other phones shows that OnePlus has done some significant work on these cameras. While the detail at 5x zoom can't quite match that of the OPPO Reno or the Huawei P30 Pro, it eclipses the Galaxy S10 in detail and offers better dynamic range than Huawei or OPPO's latest zoom masters. It also seems to do the best job of all cameras when zooming between 3x and 4x, as this is a sort of sweet spot for that lens and sensor. Even in low light, you'll find the telephoto camera does a better job than other phones at this zoom level and probably can be classed as one of the absolute best zoom cameras on the market. That new ultra-wide-angle camera also does a stellar job in any lighting and seems to provide more natural colors than other phones we've tested. It's even got phenomenal detail and dynamic range when compared to the other phones here, showing that OnePlus's processing has improved in significant ways over the past year alone. Nighttime photography with the ultra-wide-angle camera on any phone isn't the best, But the lack of available night mode on the OnePlus 7 Pro means there's not even the ability to get a better result in auto mode, so it's not quite as useful there as it could be. OnePlus continues to have my absolute favorite camera interface on any device, with only one area falling short. I wish those photo and video modes were combined, so that these modes didn't have to be swiped between, but everything else here is brilliant. Being able to remove almost everything from the carousel and use the simple swipe up method to change modes is easily the smartest design on any phone at the moment. To change modes, you simply swipe up, and all modes are within a thumb's reach. It's even better than LG's design in this regard because the buttons are lower on the screen and therefore easier to reach. Pro mode continues to be excellent too, with a maximum ISO of 3200 and a shutter speed of 30 seconds, as well as options to use the full 48 megapixel resolution in JPEG or RAW formats. The only thing I really don't like about the software is the rear-facing portrait mode, which forces use of that 3x zoom lens for these shots. It makes portrait shots too tight and also forces you to stand quite a ways back from the subject to get a shot with the bokeh effect. Not a good change in my opinion. I'd rather have the option to choose the zoom level, thank you. Video is one of those areas where OnePlus made significant improvements, particularly last year with the OnePlus 6, and it continues to excel in many areas with the OnePlus 7 Pro. One negative issue to point out right out of the gate is the inability to use that ultra-wide-angle camera for video of any kind. While we've seen restrictions on third cameras for some phones, this is an absolutely bizarre one that's more than unfortunate. It kind of feels like a waste of space having that third camera without the ability to record video. With that out of the way though, the video recording experience on the other two cameras is excellent in the vast majority of situations. OnePlus was among the first OEMs to offer 4K 60 recording with quality image stabilization, and it still does a good job of keeping up with the Joneses on this front. 4K 60 recording looks excellent with really solid dynamic range and more accurate colors than that of Samsung's Galaxy S10. There's a minute difference in stabilization where the Galaxy S10 seems to do a tad bit better at keeping the image stable while walking, but it's not really enough of a difference to complain about, and the better dynamic range and colors of the OnePlus 7 give that one the win. It's also got better dynamic range than the LG G8, but the colors on the G8 seem to edge it out a bit. Stabilization on the video is about the same as between the OnePlus 7 and the Galaxy S10, with the G8 having ever so slightly better stabilization, but it's really not better enough to give either side a true win. Video from the telephoto lens is not quite as impressive as photos from the telephoto lens, but not because it's bad, rather that's because the quality is not really noticeably different from other phones in this price range when running at 4K resolution at 60 frames a second. Things do take a turn for the worse in low light though, where that 4K 60 setting becomes less useful, as the video itself is just very, very dark. This area is fairly dark at night, but there are streetlights illuminating the path, as well as shops with their lights on, but it's still extremely difficult to see anything on the OnePlus 7 Pro's video. The Galaxy S10, on the other hand, is a bit brighter and just enough to make things out, making it more useful. That lighting situation improves when dropping the frame rate to 30, but stabilization at night leaves a bit to be desired. Lastly is the front-facing camera, which has made a name for itself by being the first pop-up front-facing camera on any major device to market. Compared to the OPPO Reno and the Huawei P30 Pro, the OnePlus 7 Pro has more natural colors and better overall detail in every situation we tested it in, while it ends up tying with the Galaxy S10 and the Google Pixel 3 overall. Between these three, the S10, Pixel 3, and OnePlus 7 Pro, it's a bit of a toss-up in overall quality and detail, as one scene will show the OnePlus 7 Pro as the overall winner, while other scenes favor the Galaxy S10 or the Pixel 3, but there's not necessarily a trend here as to what types of lighting each works best in. All in all, this is by far the best camera OnePlus has ever made, without question. The lowest points come in the lack of any sort of video recording options on that ultra-wide-angle camera and a night mode that isn't the best, but also isn't quite the worst in the industry either. Everything else is superb and will easily make even the pickiest of consumers happy in most situations. We hope you enjoyed that review and will subscribe to us for regularly updated content. Chat with us on your favorite social media network, and don't forget to check out AndroidHeadlines.com for 24/7 worldwide tech news coverage. Thanks for watching, and until next time.